You may get a little excited when you shop at Burlington.
Oh, what a low price! Do you see that? They have my favorite brand! It's like a whole new Burlington! I can buy two! Woo!
I'm saving so much!
Burlington saves you up to 60% off other retailers' prices every day. Will it be the low prices or the great brands? You'll love the deals. You'll love Burlington. I told you so.
Styles and selections vary by store.
Empire. Hey babies, hey babies, hey babies. Hi everyone, hi everyone, hi everyone. What's up, everybody? I'm back from Utah, everybody. Spring break's over for me, Callow. I'm back.
You're back, and you missed some stuff last week. Not to say that you weren't, but you missed some major things for
I missed some
April.
big major things. I did. I missed some big major things. I was like, oh, I tried to, you go to a place like that, you try to unplug a little bit. Well, not in Vegas. We went to Vegas. I took my kids to Vegas for a couple nights. That's the first time ever that I did not gamble literally for a second.
Whoa. Okay.
Not once. Now I'm with my kids. So like, there's no real like opportunity to do that, but I didn't. And I definitely spent more money than I've ever spent there in my life.
I mean, it is, you and I joke about this, how that town now is more family friendly, but it's all gimmicks. It's all shops or tickets or whatever you need to spend money on.
Zion National Park, by the way, A++++. That place is amazing. We only spent a few nights there. I could have stayed for weeks. It was beautiful. Really, really, truly amazing. We got very lucky with the weather too. It was really, really, it was like 75 degrees there. It was truly amazing. So if that's on your bucket list like it was on mine, confirmed, keep it on the bucket list. That was truly, truly amazing.
Have heard that it's the most insane sky at night too. Is what I've heard.
It was everything. It was really amazing. I mean, if I ever just go the mystical route of going off the grid, it might be there. That's the thing. If I go Aaron Rodgers, it might be to Zion. If I'm going to go into the darkness retreat, it might be there. I think I found my darkness retreat. I think I'm ready for it.
You missed that. He's not doing that this offseason. He doesn't have any of that going on. So I'm just, just updating.
I saw clips of his interview, which I did. Should we talk about that for a minute? Let me talk about that for a minute. I did see that.
Sure.
I thought it was the most honest one he's given in 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that. He still doesn't know how to play the PR game. Because
no, he does not. No, he doesn't.
Because what irked me, and I don't want to spend too much time on it because we have to catch up so much, but his whole thing about bitching about how the Jets treated him, he was gonna bitch about that either way. Like, had they fired him over the phone, he would have bitched about that. Instead, he's bitching about flying across the country. I don't sympathize with what he was trying to like put down with the Jets. That was all.
It's not like the Jets are denying this, and not that they want to go back and forth with him, but for him to fly across the country, to be told in whatever amount of time, like a minute, was like, we're not going to keep you here. I'm actually, for one of the first times, I'm kind of with him on, and why did I fly here?
I mean, I don't know. Once again, I think you could bitch about it either way. And I think he would have bitched about it either way. Like, because then he would have said, oh, they fired me over the phone.
Sure, but like, it would have been better than, but we didn't fly you here to tell you in 20 seconds we're not going to be with you any longer. And then like if this is accurate, where they said to him, do you want to still play? And he gave his whatever wishy-washy answer was to them. And then they go, well, we're not keeping you anyway. Like, and then apparently the coach ran out of the room. I mean, if that's really what happened, well, why did they fly him in to do that? Like, that's insane. So of all the insane things he does, this was the first time that I saw the other side of, well, that was insane too. Why would you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I think this one's a damned if you do, damned if you don't. There's no right way to fire somebody is what I'm getting at, I think, overall here.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, like, I've had an experience like this. You know this. Like, I've had an experience locally, which I won't talk about who in this, but I had an experience of come here to talk to us when you and I both know that I'm not working with you. So why are we going through this stupid process of even having this meeting? So it was like the first time ever I totally related to him. I'm like, I had an experience like that where I went somewhere and I had somebody basically bring me in and walk me around and show me stuff, knowing full well I was never going to work at this place. Like I had an experience like that, so I know what that's like. It's weird,
right? Yeah, no, I get it. Either way, it's just, I will say this: I agree with you. It was very honest, and him being honest about his playing future and why it's taking him a while to make this decision. I was okay with that, actually. Like for once, I was fine with the answers he was given. That was the only one I had a gripe with, because I think he would have bitched about it either way. That's all.
The lie, though, is because he will not sign for $10 million, is the I would play for $10 million line, which was, no, you won't. Like, give me a break. That's not going to happen. You're probably waiting through the draft. You're going to see who picks who. You're going to see who's desperate. You're going to see if you really want to play for them, and you're not going to play for $10 million. Give me a break. So that was the one little stupid lie that came out of his mouth.
Right. No, I mean, he did say, he was asked if someone drafting somebody would affect it. He did say no on that. I don't know how much I believe him, but
I don't believe that either.
I mean, my only thing on that one is specifically with the Steelers. Like, the Steelers might be telling him, hey, we might draft somebody, but they're not going to threaten you. And maybe he's kind of agreed to that behind the scenes if he does indeed sign there. I don't know. So, I mean,
that's actually the truth of it. They're not going to get Cam Ward, who's probably going to be expected to start immediately. Anybody else selected very well could not be starting for their team's day one. Like, let's say the Saints do take Shedeur Sanders. Like, they still have Derek Carr there. Like, they very easily, well, he got hurt. So but he very easily could not necessarily start on day one. Or if Pittsburgh, who's kind of earmarked to take Jackson Dart, like if that pops up, yeah, like I could see where he's not really earmarked to start on day one. This isn't last year's quarterback class. So that actually would be probably very honest. Like, in fact, I would even make a case. I'm not even sure Cam Ward should start day one. Like, if they have Will Levis there, I'm not even sure that that's what should happen for them either, even though it probably will. It's just a very different quarterback class this year. So if they are telling him that, it kind of is the truth. It really is.
Right. No, I mean, and at the same time too, like, this also isn't the same threatening quarterback that is normally drafted in the first round anyways. Like, that's where I've landed on this as well, is they're basically saying this isn't like years past where this guy's probably not going to start at all this year. We don't want him to start at all this year. Like, come along for the ride for this 1 year and we'll see how it goes on the other side.
Yeah. All right. So meantime, I'm surveying all the mock drafts. I want to get to all the stuff I missed last week, especially RFK. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. But like the mock drafts, like, they're everywhere. I like, if you, and I'm not surprised. I felt this way really kind of starting. I didn't really start looking. This was an unusual year. I didn't start looking at the draft until after we were done. So it was very late in the season. And it became abundantly clear very early that there aren't very many obvious, like, top 10 picks. And if there's not many obvious top 10 picks, well, what's the rest of the draft look like? So when you're picking 29, which is always kind of a crapshoot anyway, and because of what the Commanders did in the offseason with the Tunsil trade and the Debo trade, where they addressed some clear needs and kind of opened everything up, I'm not totally surprised that, like, you're getting a lot of different answers at what people think they're going to do at 29, because it's just a long way away to try to project who's going to be there. But, like, when you really actually look at it, you'll see people having them take somebody at 29 that some other mock draft will have go in the top 10 or go in the top 15 or not be into the first round at all. Like, it's so all over the place. There isn't even consensus of who would go specifically where. And this is maybe one of the most unusual ones that I've come around to, because I also agree, and I think it's just an admission of there's not a lot of obvious top-tier talent this time around. Because of that, it's not like that some of these guys aren't going to end up being really good. They are, but it's kind of eye of the beholder. And because it's eye of the beholder, everybody's all over the map. So, like, here we are 3 days away from this. And if you looked at the mock drafts like I did this morning, you would see it's everywhere. It's like there's no consensus on literally anything other than Cam Ward is going number one. That's it.
No, it's exactly right. And not only that, when you look at the Commanders too, the Commanders have so many needs and then players that honestly they need to also look at if they want to have good things moving forward. Like you look at, I see you have it listed there on the Chiron of a wide receiver. Like you look at wide receiver, they have none under contract, or their top two aren't under contract next season. No one's going to be surprised if they take one of those. The other thing too is like, do they find a dance partner to trade down to address some of those needs? I'm with you. This is after the top pick. It's all chaos. It's going to be definitely one of the more interesting drafts to watch live. But at the same time, too, I'm happy with the Commanders picking this late because it also means there are going to be plenty of players that, because of the chaos, a lot of these teams are going to maybe fall in love with, but also say, maybe we should trade up and get that 5th-year option so we can keep that player. They're in a good position to move down. I've been saying it for a while, but after seeing the actual mocks over the last couple of weeks, I'm very confident that they'll find a trade partner to move down with too now.
Yeah, I think so too, actually. So I'll just go through some of them that I saw this morning that I respect, because there's 8 million mock drafts out there, but, right. I want to go with the ones that no disrespect to anybody, but I'm just going to go with the ones that I follow and the people who are kind of in the industry. Dane Brugler does this thing called The Beast. It's really great. You got to really nerd out for this whole thing, but it's enormous. And there's part of me that goes, I can't believe this guy hasn't been hired by a front office because it's so complete in everything that he does that it's insane. Anyway, he's got us taking a receiver. He's got Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State going to Washington. Of all the positions that I think are possible to be taken at 29, it's the least likely of all of them, in my opinion, just because Terry, I think, is going to get an extension. Debo is already here. They have been able to fill in with veteran wide receivers who can be productive in and around it. Do they really feel like they need to have this receiver of the future on this team that is a number one receiver? Or if you're going to pick him in the first round, you expect that he could be. Of all the things that are on the list of what they need to do, that's not that high for me on this particular draft. I think there are just too many other spots that I look at and I go edge, corner, interior offensive line, definitively running back, or if for some reason one of the 2 or 3 really, really good tight ends fell to them, I would consider that. I don't think that would happen, but if Tyler Warren for some reason was available, I would take him because I think he's a top tier player, even though tight end isn't that high on the list to me. So of all of them, and I really respect Dane's work, I don't think that's the direction they'll go, but because everything's so all over the map, I don't know what's going to happen, honestly.
The argument that I've kind of had, and of course, I had a week of last week with a lot of light news of having to discuss this a couple of times. I think I've landed on this with Adam Peters. If he goes wide receiver, it is telling me that, one, they actually like the value that's there. I think that's number one with Peters. We've seen that's what he actually kind of thrives on. 2, I think it's also him screaming, it's easier for me to build this offense up than it is to get a difference maker on the defensive side of the ball. I'm landing on it right now of, do they need an edge rusher really badly? Yeah, absolutely. And if they get a really good one, how much of a difference is that edge rusher going to make on this defense? I don't know, actually, where that lies, because the guy that they're going to get will be basically a second-round pick, right? So I think the argument here is essentially, if I add another weapon on the offense, how much better is the offense going to get? And I think you could make an argument that a third young wide receiver could make more of an impact than an edge rusher at the end of the first round.
Yes. So I went to NFL.com's and I saw 3 different ones and they all came with 3 different players.
Yeah.
All of them.
Right.
All of them at multiple different positions. They had, one of them had the edge from Boston College, whose last name I'll butcher, Donovan Iziriaku. Daniel Jeremiah had this guy going 10 picks higher than where the Commanders would have him, and have them taking Azariah Thomas, who's a corner out of Florida State, that's possibility. And then on a third different NFL.com mock draft, they have him taking an edge out of Ohio State, who I hadn't heard at all falling into the first round. So even if you just go to one singular site like NFL.com and you go through their mock drafts, you will see a variance that is so grand. Last year, and I think because there were so many quarterbacks coming out, and then there were some other very obvious, top tier players. Joe Alt he is going to be a Pro Bowl tackle, period. Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison were like obvious picks. Like you have to take these. They're going to be really, really good players. You have to take them. There are so few of those players that are so consensus obvious that if you go to NFL.com, you will not only see 3 different types of mocks, you will see players that one person thinks goes at the bottom of the first round and the other person thinks goes near the top 10. Like it's not even, there's not even remotely close to a consensus of what's going on right now. So here's one that I think is like the truth of it too. Like this is the test for the front offices of all time. If you're not picking in the top 3 or 4, where it is the obvious person that you're supposed to take, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, whether they turn out to be great or not doesn't really matter because like never forget it was obvious those were the people you were supposed to take.
Yep.
Once you get past 10 or even maybe past 7, something like that, we're going to find out what kind of evaluators you really are because it's total eye of the beholder. Nobody agrees on anything. So we're going to find out what front offices are right about the people they pick and the ones that are wrong.
I landed on this last week too a little bit where Shedeur Sanders is the microcosm of the draft. The whole chatter with Shedeur is where will he go? Who will draft him? And I'm going, this is only chaotic because you guys actually don't have these other overwhelming prospects to draft ahead of him is where I've landed on this one. And his allure is sexy because of the name. And, you know, there are some teams that need a quarterback and could trade back in the first round. Like the consensus for Shedeur is he's going to probably get past the top 10. And then it's, you know, all these other teams that might try to get him, whether they trade up or whatever, or if he drops a little bit. But I think he's the microcosm of how this draft has gone, essentially. He's a first-round pick, we think, could be a early second-round pick, I guess, but we have no idea how the draft board is going to actually fall, and I think he's like the actual poster child of what this draft is about to be like.
Yeah. I saw a couple people say he's going to go 3 to the Giants.
Right.
I've seen others say people like the Saints would take him. I've seen others say Pittsburgh might take him. And then I've seen people say he falls out of the first round entirely.
Yeah.
And he's the one that I want to be available at 29 because I think he's the one someone would trade back in for. And obviously that's the one thing we're not taking is a quarterback. So my gut says he's not falling that far. My gut says someone is going to take him or move up to get him. And it's probably going to happen somewhere in the top part of the first round, not as high as 3. I think the Giants would just love it if somebody would call them under some kind of threat that they would take him. The other thing with him is, and we just don't know like what's what here. Like they've hinted they want him to go to certain places. And then they've said that they aren't doing anything like that or trying to manipulate the draft. And it was really funny. The other day, I was just flipping around, or yesterday, and there was a recap of the 94 NFL draft, which is the very famous Mel Kiper gets yelled at by Bill Tobin moment that made Mel Kiper really actually very uber famous for getting screamed at by a real GM who got mad. He got mad at him. He got mad because they took Trev Alberts over Trent Dilfer. That was what they were screaming about. And Bill Tobin makes fun of Mel Kiper. In this draft, Washington selects Heath Schuler. You will actually see Charlie Casserly explain why they took him and why they didn't take Trent Dilfer. Like what changed him. It was actually Norv that changed everything that they wanted him to. And then they get to an interview with Dilfer, who I did not know this, but he admitted that he manipulated the draft and that what Mel Kiper and no one ever knows about this is they told the Colts that if they selected him, he was going to go back to college and wasn't going to play for them. And then he ended up going to Tampa, which ended up being a huge mistake. He didn't have a really great career till he got to Baltimore and ended up playing on that great team and got to the Super Bowl with it. And he admits in this interview, I wish I never did that. And I only bring this up because I do feel like there's some level of the Sanders family trying to manipulate this a little bit. And I think that's part of this that we just don't know. And they've kind of told on themselves throughout this process where they say things like, yeah, I'm not telling everybody what they want to hear because like I'm almost trying to blow up some of these interviews. Like I'm trying to blow the test. So he's one that I think I'm not really sure what he wants to have happen because he's not going number 1. And I know that they want to try to handpick where he goes, or there's a handful of teams he wants to play for. And then there's the Giants, where if you don't think that the ownership is a little more hands-on than they were last year when what we saw in Hard Knocks, then you're crazy. Because if they let them come back and they're just going to let them do whatever they want after the decisions they made, no chance on earth. So you don't think that the ownership of the Giants isn't stepping in and saying whether they want to draft Shedeur Sanders or not? Of course they're stepping in to say that to them. Like, there's no way they're not doing that right now. So he's the wild card to me. He's the linchpin for me. I do believe he'll go in the first round. I just don't know where. Like, that's all it is.
Yeah, and like for a team like the Giants too, they're in a bad position of they would probably love to trade down and draft him, but not draft him third, right? Like, I think that's where they've probably landed as well, is they would love to give him a shot, especially when you look at that quarterback room that they've assembled now. Like, that's actually, to me, a good place for him to land so he doesn't have this pressure on him, because there's two veteran quarterbacks in that room where you won't have to start right away. I think it's the position, though. Like you said, too, there are a consensus, top 3 to 6 players that you should draft. And if you're the Giants, like, do you want to reach for a quarterback in this draft? I don't think so. On the overall arching feeling of him, too, though, there's plenty of film on Shedeur as well. Like, if you've landed on, you think you can build around him, you take him. Like, that's where I've landed at this point. Like, you can't actually, like, he is not in a position to pull an Eli, is what I'm getting at here. Like, he's not going to be the first or second overall pick here where he can do that. He's got to kind of just land where he goes and then start his professional career. So I do think they're trying to scare people, but if you are convinced, you're not going to listen to that kind of noise from them.
Yeah, he's the most interesting one in the draft. I mean, I've been clear about how I feel about it. Like, I think he's got a long way to go to be a really good NFL quarterback. I think just from this play, and it had nothing to do with his personality or his family. I think that actually helps him here. I think, like, all of that stuff, I actually think is a positive. His bravado, the family background, the ability to succeed in unusual places. Like, I'm sure he's one of the best coached players in the draft. Like, he's got a background for this. He's going to be ready for this. Nothing's going to surprise him. Like, all of that stuff, I think, is extreme positives with him. Like, none of it to me is a turnoff at all. Even if he's a little brash in an interview, that wouldn't be a turnoff at all to me. I know where he comes from. I know who his dad is. I know what pedigree he has. I know what he excelled at. And but it's just when I watch him on tape, that's all it is. When I watch his play, I go, he holds the ball too long. He's not really, athletically gifted in speed. His arm strength looks pretty good to me, looks fine, but fine and pretty good and not over, there's no advantage here. And so to me, it's like the NFL is so much faster than college football is. I just watch him and I go, the processing speed for him is going to have to go so much quicker than what it was. Otherwise, he's going to be sacked 50 times a year, or he's going to force himself into making quicker decisions that he wants to. That's all it is to me. And so I look at him and I go, this is a project, like a really good one because of his pedigree, but he's a project. And I wouldn't want to pick a project at number 3. So if I'm the Giants, I just go, you know what? I agree with you. I would trade back and maybe take a chance on him at a later point. But who's trading up for a wide receiver or the edge rusher when it's not obvious that those guys are going to be Hall of Fame players? Like, no offense to Travis Hunter. I think he's an outstanding player. He probably will be an outstanding pro. But I don't look at him as any better than Malik Neighbors. I don't. Or I look at Abdul Carter and I go, is he actually better than Micah Parsons? I don't know. Would I trade a couple of first-round picks to find out? I wouldn't, because that's the price to get up to number 3. So I think they're kind of stuck, and I think they're going to take not him, and then we're going to find out what happens once we get past the Giants.
Yeah, I mean, clearly the Giants, I think, should take best player available, even if that means taking another edge rusher, by the way. That's also kind of the chatter of they already have a pretty stacked defensive line. Well, last time I checked, those guys are all in demand anyway. So they might get themselves into a good predicament where maybe you can trade Thibodeau or someone else, along the defensive line. That's the only one you move.
I mean, Burns was really good for them. Burns is being paid. Yeah. I think Thibodeau's not being paid yet. You move him. That's what ends up happening. If that's what you're going to do, you're going to end up moving him, and there will be a market for him for sure.
Right. And so it's kind of a good prop for the Giants to have. I would say this too. I'd make this argument. You you could make that move too to kick that contract down the road too. Like, you're not exactly in the best business of just paying for this edge rusher when you still don't have things figured out. And if you could just get one to replace him and he's just as good, that's not the worst thing in the world to have right now, especially on a team that's, picking third overall, essentially.
The one other mock draft that I saw was Jordan Reed's. I like his work a lot with ESPN. And he had Washington taking Travion Henderson, who is someone that, so running back. So we've got someone picking them at edge. We have someone picking them getting wide receiver. We have a corner. We have a couple different edges. CBS had put one out this morning that had them trading out. They were the one that was actually trading out. And they had whoever it was trading up, getting Luther Burden, the receiver, which is someone who's been linked here too. I saw Matthew Golden potentially going to Dallas at 12 and being out of the first round entirely or available to Washington. This is how all over the map the whole thing is. And then it goes back to running back, which I've been stumping for a while, that if you are going to load up on the offense, this seems like the proper spot to do it. And look, Ashton Genty's going to be a top 10 pick for somebody. He's going to be like, he's one of the clear cut. I think part of it is not only is I think he's an outstanding talent. I think part of it also is there's not a lot of other outstanding talent that's coming out. He's a clear hit. Like it was like Bijan Robinson. Like, he's going to be good. I remember a couple of years ago when he was drafted and I was like thinking about him and I'm like, he's going to be hard to turn down because he's just good. Like I'm in the business of what people keep asking, like need or whatever. I'm always in the business of, I just want really great players. I don't actually really care what position it's at. In this particular case, I wouldn't take a quarterback, but that's the only thing. Like, that's the only thing. I don't care. Like, if we're taking a really, really good football player, I would do that. And that's where Genty's going to fall somewhere. So to me, I'm not adverse to taking a running back, especially at 29, especially in this draft. I've been stumping for it for a while. Henderson and this running back out of North Carolina, Hampton, have caught my eye as the two that I think could be difference-making players. I've been talking about this since the end of the season. This team needs to upgrade its explosive playmaker ability on the offensive side of the ball. Now that they've addressed offensive line in a huge way by getting Tunsil, trickling down the rest of the line, getting Debo, I think they are one more person away from walking into next season going, let's see what we can do with this group. And running back just screams like the answer to me. And it sounds like the people that could be difference makers in this draft come from that position and would be available. So I'm all for that if that's what ends up happening.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what I was saying. I think it's easier to build up the offense to make a difference and have a difference maker than it is on drafting someone on defense. Specifically edge rusher, honestly, is where I'm landing here on this one. Like, they could get somebody that's very good, that's solid, but will it be a difference maker that is going to impact games as much as another offensive weapon will? For Jaden, I'm not sure. Like, I'm not sure that person even exists at where they're picking here. So I see it from all angles here. I think the number one thing I'm looking at is trade down, get some picks, and grab one or two of these positions, and I'd be much more satisfied.
Yeah, in most cases, like in a situation like this, and maybe this is a better conversation just for tomorrow to talk it through. But, when you come in with a new group and you want to reset a culture and you want to bring in all these young people and you want to kind of build through the draft and you talk about that, and you had a lot of draft picks last year and some of them turned out to be hits. And so they feel like foundational pieces. It just feels logical that you continue down that path, but they kind of haven't. I think they've pivoted to we can win right now. And they're not wrong. Like, they can with this quarterback playing at this level. And if you really look at the makeup of the team, it's actually quite veteran laden. Like, they're not relying on a ton of young players. They're relying on one at the most pivotal position, but they're not doing so. They've already said, all right, Brandon Coleman, you had a good year. You're not our left tackle any longer. We're going to move you to a spot that we feel like would be better for us, like competitively moving forward. Like, the whole idea of we're going to build this thing up, I wouldn't say it's been scrapped. It's been pivoted. And so that's why I look at something like running back and I go, I think they're going to take somebody they think they can plug in right now to help them win right now, as opposed to let's just get a good bunch of young players and keep building this thing up. I think they want to win the Super Bowl next year. And because of that, I think they're going to look at this draft and go, who could we pick that we think is going to play immediately and be impact players immediately? And that's why I think running back keeps coming up and up and up for me. It's a clear need to find somebody who can upgrade the position and give them some more explosiveness. And at the same time, fulfill the goal of trying to be a winner immediately here.
No, that's exactly where I've landed on here too, is like, look at how the offense played that first half of the year, first third of the year, I guess is probably the better way to describe it, where they were getting 200 yards on the ground, in certain games. I think they missed that later on in the season. You and I landed on that. It just became put the ball in Five's hands, in the second half of the year, essentially. And that worked. But you and I saw how, it worked in Philadelphia in the NFC Championship game. They couldn't pivot. They couldn't really come back because there was no way for them to do that when they became very one-dimensional, where they had to be one-dimensional. And I think that's where I've landed here too, is I'm not going to be mad if they go with an offensive playmaker here, because I think they're saying we can win with that side of the ball. Whereas on defense, it does feel like you're kind of slapping a Band-Aid on a bad wound, So that's where I've landed on taking a running back or a wide receiver here.
I trust that their defense will be good. It was good. It wasn't bad. It was good. It was fine. They didn't give up a ton of big plays. What they did not do is get a bunch of turnovers, which they had hoped to get. And what they did not do is set an edge well, and they had a bad run defense. That's where they had their problems. They're trying to address the run defense part by bringing in a bunch of veteran players and a little more stout on the edge. At the same time, they don't have what appears to be a lot of playmakers on that side of the ball. So what do? You could go get another player and plug them in, and maybe it makes you better, or you can try to load up on one side of the ball. And it appears that that's the decision that they've made. They feel like year two will be better with the group they have, even if it's not top 5, because they don't have the type of difference-making players up front that make you top 5, unless we get surprised. Lattimore comes back. He's really healthy, looks like himself from a couple of years ago, Pro Bowl player. Kinlaw, as they believe, you haven't seen the best of him yet. That's a sell. You gotta buy into that one. But that's what they're selling you a little bit here, that you haven't seen the best of this guy yet. Give him an opportunity. Samuel's year 2. There's going to be a jump for him in play, wherever position he plays. And the cornerback position is in way better hands just in general, from St. Juice and Forbes to Lattimore, Jones, Sandra, whatever the group ends up being. Just give us some time and you'll see that group is in better hands. That's the sell here to me right now, that they're saying we can win right now and we might have to overload on offense to do it. And I understand if that's how they feel about it in the short term. It doesn't mean it can't pivot again in a year or two, but right now they got a chance to have a top 5 offense, and it feels like they're loading up on it, and it's hard to argue with it, honestly.
No, especially with how they looked last year. With the pieces that they had, they were very impressive with a lot of Jags is what I call it. And that was fine. But you and I have talked about it. They were a wide receiver 2 by committee, essentially. Running backs, all of them, whether it was injuries or whatever, all fell off in the second half of the year. The fact is, you upgrade that at a few certain little spots there. All of a sudden, they're also not playing for last second wins for the last 2 months of this season as well. I think they're also looking at that. I think it's a smart way to look at it as, you know what, they kind of threaded the needle in every sense to get into the playoffs and get to where they got. They need to look at them from a self-evaluation standpoint of, let's not have to win at the last second every single time. So let's load up on what is making us good right now.
Yes, they didn't have enough explosive playmakers to win games differently.
Yeah.
So, I agree with this. The idea that that's going to get replicated, that's why it was so crazy exciting and almost unbelievable, because nobody does that regularly. You don't win every game at the buzzer. That was a ridiculous thing that occurred a year ago. They're smart enough to realize they can't count on that happening again. Yeah. As clutch as this kid is, as clutch as this team is, as into it as they are together, all of that stuff really matters. It doesn't mean you're going to win every game by 1 point.
Right.
You've got to upgrade, and they're doing it. All right, let me take a quick break. Ray Watch the show, ESPN 630 Sports. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your sports betting action. Baseball season is in full swing, and we've just started the NBA and NHL playoffs, which has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting while the games are being played. With the largest selection of odds on everything from the MLB, NHL, and the UFC, Bet Online remains the number one online source for all your sports wagering info. In between games, head over to the Bet Online Casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and a live casino. Bet Online. The game starts here.
You may get a little excited when you shop at Burlington.
What a low price! Did you see that? They have my favorite brand! It's like a whole new Burlington! I can buy 2!
I'm saving so much!
Burlington saves you up to 60% off other retailers' prices every day. Will it be the low prices or the great brands? You'll love the deals. You'll love Burlington. I told you so.
Styles and selections vary by store.
All right, welcome back. Very quickly, I saw some quotes from Jaden Daniels on what year 2 means to him coming back, and you'll like what he has to say. This was his quote on the Gruden Goes Long show podcast. He said, "You're always trying to find little ways to get better. For me, it's like last year was last year. That's great. But it's a whole new year now. I still have to go out there. I got to prove myself to my teammates, the organization, each and every day that I'm getting better. And when it's time to prepare and when those games come, I've got to know that, hey, how can I eliminate some tendencies, stuff like that, because that's the big thing. Coaches are always trying to find tendencies about this player so they can anticipate and hopefully get you into that situation." This guy at every turn says like the exact right thing, which is you would think off of having, and this is not even arguable, the greatest season any rookie quarterback has ever had, that maybe his tone would change a little bit, but it doesn't. And if this is what it's going to be perpetually, I need to get better perpetually, he will. I've seen how he works, and we're like, I'll go back to what Fred Smoot used to say. We're at ground zero with him. We don't know what next is with him. What if next is better? And if next is better, watch out. And he's talking like someone who knows that next can be better.
I think it's the most underrated storyline this entire offseason. I'm obviously biased, being where we're at, but nobody is talking about the jump that he might make from year 1 to year 2.
Everyone talks about a slump as
yes.
if like that's a like not necessarily. Like in this case, I don't know, man. Like there's a lot of room to get better, and they're putting better people around him.
It's not only that too. Like I go back to kind of how you and I we were starting to land this way, especially the second half of the year, where opposing teams, fan bases, and even media were going, he's a rookie. Like, how great could he be? And, people like you and I that are watching every week going, we watch it every single week, and it's not a fluke. He is that good. He is that type of leader. He can make those plays. He just keeps getting better and better. And I think we're kind of entering that with the national media again, heading into year 2. Everyone's going, they added Debo, they added, Larry Tunsil. They had a great offseason, but like literally no one is saying, how much better can he get in year 2?
Right.
And I think you and I are on the same page here. I am privy to believe Jaden Daniels is going to get better than he's going to get worse. I'm sorry. Like watching the guy and his attitude, he screams just absolute workhorse. And I'm excited to see that. I think it's the most underrated storyline in the entire offseason is that no one's talking about.
Last year at this time, the thing that got me most about him and why it was so obvious to take him was go watch him when he played at Arizona State and then go watch him when he played at LSU. The jump in his play was so dramatic. Like I even think like if you asked Herm Edwards, like honestly, did you think he'd become this when he went to LSU? He'd probably say no. Like he's like, I knew he was a good kid. I knew he was a hard worker. I knew he was really talented. But to go from what that was to best player in the sport overnight, that's work ethic. And that's why I buy that, like, it's going to get better. And the Philadelphia factor is good and bad. They have to get past them, and they're in their division. So that's a humongous problem. And if they don't change the seeding, like that's being, put out there, well, like you're definitively like in a situation where you have to surpass them just to get home games in the playoffs. The good part of it is that everyone expects them to win. And maybe that's part of we're not paying that close attention because we think Philadelphia is a given. And when those perceptions are kind of out there, it's a little helpful to stay as under the radar as you can, even though I'm like, in a couple of weeks, we're going to get a schedule and they're going to have 6 night games. Like there's no way around it. Like they're not going to be hidden when the season comes around.
No, that's exactly right. Like we've seen this time and time again where he just keeps performing and performing and performing. And I'm with you. The national media and the national audience now will start to see it over and over again too. Like I was actually kind of shocked at how they were being written off after the Bengals game. Like I know it was early on, but the throws he was making in that game, I don't know how he didn't sway half the country of how good he was at that point. I get it. I guess maybe people were believing more in the Bengals defense being that bad at that point. But I just remember thinking, no matter what defense that was, some of the passes that he made, especially the Terry touchdown, those are some of the best plays we'd seen in decades here, you know, in DC. So yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know what else he has to do to kind of convince everyone that he is the real deal and that he gets better and better. I'm with you. I keep going back to last year where I wanted him more than Drake May or anyone else in the draft because of the improvement. And it was a part of the chatter coming out of the draft. The VR stuff, being first one in there, seeing the janitor at 5 a.m. Like, those are the types of stories that I loved hearing about him because I knew he wasn't just a guy that was relying on what he had right now. He's trying to improve every single day.
Yeah. All right. Let me get to RFK here for a minute. So I was away last week when NBC4 broke the news that there is a deal that's close between the city and the Commanders to build a new stadium at RFK, and that the Commanders, at least reportedly, were going to put somewhere in the neighborhood of $2 to $2.5 billion of their own money raised to build the stadium with an agreement that they would get to redevelop the entire area with under whatever rules. There's some rules about open air space and park space that needs to be accounted for in the, you know, whatever the rules are that Congress put together. They're still waiting for some kind of approval from Congress on the budget, but that this is happening. And I mean, like, all I've said over the last couple of weeks was the fact that this is so quiet tells you that it is rolling downhill and rolling downhill the right way. Otherwise, you would hear a lot of loud pushback and people would take advantage of a situation that was fractious. They weren't doing that. So I think this is happening. Like, I mean, like, you know, there's no reason not to believe it's not happening. I guess Congress still needs to comply with the budget. And then, you know, the mayor has to get the city council completely on board. There is going to be public money that's going to be used for infrastructure. That would be used either way, no matter what the redevelopment is. So if taxpayers are complaining it's towards a stadium, it would be towards something. Your tax money will go to redeveloping something in terms of infrastructure. It doesn't matter what it is. And I got to tell you, like, it's going to be hard to come up with chief pushback if the organization is putting up the amount of money that they're talking about putting up to build this thing. So it feels like we're set for liftoff. I can't believe it, but like we're this close to crossing a finish line. I'm, you know me, I've been talking about this for years. I was never going to believe it until I saw it because of so much red tape. But the red tape, we're down to like one more just to cut through, and then all of a sudden it looks like we're on liftoff.
I think the three prongs here that I kind of landed on, especially doing the show as the news broke last week, was one, the 2.5 billion or up to 2.5 billion was another kind of, you know, feather in the cap of Josh Harris to go, you know what? I know you don't have the budget to do this. What are you going to do for me if I do put up the money for this? And the city goes, okay, do you want to redevelop the entire 180 acres? And I think that's an even trade here. Like, you don't have to put up all of this money. You let them redevelop it, whether it becomes like Navy Yard or something very similar. That sounds about right because that's how the modern sports, you know, right, stadium goes now, right? And I think everyone looks at that and goes, well, if we don't have to pay for most of that, okay, like there's no argument there. Two, I thought it was also because we didn't hear anything about this leading up to it, the 2030 deadline was a shocker for me that he wrote that date in the sand to say, I want this stadium up and ready to go by the fall of 2030. To me, behind the scenes, that's why this is getting done now, because he's going, I need a line here. I can't wait around for this. So that's my goal here. Help me get to my goal. And if not, we'll go play with Maryland, who Maryland has all but kind of just said,
they can do it.
Yeah, come talk to us and we'll break ground tomorrow on whatever site you want, you know, that's available. And I think to me, that was actually the key thing here was finally there's just a number that we can look forward to and a deadline, and deadlines get deals done. And that's the one where I landed going, wow, he actually put a date out there to say, I need it done by this point.
Yep. We'll revisit this later in the week if, you know, as things develop with it. Hopefully we'll hear some deals coming soon. All right, be right back. Bram West's Show, ESPN 630, Sports Capital.
You may get a little excited when you shop at Burlington.
What a low price! Do you see that? They have my favorite brand! It's like a whole new Burlington! I can buy two!
I'm saving so much!
Burlington saves you up to 60% off other retailers' prices every day. Will it be the low prices or the great brands? You'll love the deals. You'll love Burlington. I told you so.
Styles and selections vary by store.
All right, welcome back. The Orioles lost 24-2. So all the detractors who follow it a little more closely than I do, that go, you are mismanaging this roster. You are not addressing the needs pitching, not adequately at all. Not that one score indicates that. It's one game in a long season, but it kind of indicates that. It's kind of everything. And it's kind of when you're like, there are one-off days and there are bad days, but it's not like this team is 14-2 and they just had a weird off day. So this is a harbinger of this year isn't going to go very well. And they do have this amazing set of players on this team, but they have no pitching and it's being mismanaged. It is, period.
Yeah, the dagger of all daggers Friday too was Grayson Rodriguez has been now once again being reevaluated and getting secondary opinions on his shoulder. I think it was that Brandon Hyde said that was one of the linchpins. This is one of the problems when you go into a season like this where your pitching staff is a house of cards and all of a sudden it can fall apart. That was bad news. You're also starting to hear the rumblings of could the Orioles move on from Brandon Hyde to try to turn this around? And I'm not surprised we're starting to hear that. I think they gave him, the ship to try to turn it around after going through the seasons that he went through. But I'm with you. This is malpractice on how this team has been mismanaged. It's not all his fault. Don't get me wrong. Like he can only throw the pitchers out there that he can throw out there, but there's only a couple scapegoats you can kind of, get rid of to try to turn things around. This is looking ugly. And funny enough, this is actually a crossroads between both teams here. O's and the Nats play each other starting tomorrow. And I think both teams, this is a little bit of a crossroads series right now.
Yep. All right. And then tonight, of course, the Washington Capitals start their playoff journey this year as the 1 seed. They start with Montreal here at home tonight. They've had an incredible season. It is a memorable one. It's one where a record was broken. After the record was broken, the team basically took their hands off the wheel for the last couple of weeks. And so I want to start there. Like, I am a touch concerned that there was an afterglow that was expected, especially like the day or two after or a couple of games, okay. But the last week or so, it's been like the hockey didn't matter. And it didn't, because they had already locked up the 1 seed and they had already broken the record. And if they wanted to take a collective breath, I totally get it. I understand that. But now the games really matter all of a sudden again. And they've been no-shows for 2 weeks. So should I be concerned that this is going to go sideways because they have not looked like themselves for 3 weeks running now?
If it was Columbus, I would tell you to be concerned. Because it's Montreal, don't be. That's where I've landed on this series. The Capitals were going up against a lot of other teams that were fighting for their spot where they had nothing to play for. They couldn't match the intensity. I will look past it, mainly because of Spencer Carberry. I think he's going to have them ready to go tonight. And you look at Montreal. You know who Montreal is this year? It was the Capitals last year, where it's a young team. No one really expected them to get in. Go look at their goal differential. They don't score a lot. Their defense is a little bit of a mess. The Caps win this. I see a lot of experts going Caps in 5. I kind of know this franchise. It'll be Caps in 6. They're going to make us sweat for it a little bit here. But I'm not as concerned. I am very concerned about the goaltending. Logan Thompson was not good after the 4 Nations break, and he's injured now. So Charlie Lindgren's probably going tonight. I assume he's going tonight. I like Lindgren. He's been very, very solid, but they need some big saves from him. So that's where I'm concerned. But what I will say is this: the Capitals have one of the best 1 through 6 defense core in the league. I'd say almost a top 5 unit. That's actually going to be their linchpin through the Stanley Cup playoffs right now. Their defensemen are very, very good. Hopefully they settle in, and that's where they end up winning some of these games. Their scoring's going to come. I don't know from where, but it's going to come because a bunch of guys were scoring throughout the year. Lexi Protas coming back is going to be very important whenever that happens. But I'm not really concerned about this one. Montreal reminds me of the Caps last year. It's too young of a team to take out a team of this caliber.
See, I'm not gonna make a pick in the series. This is the first time ever. I want to see what happens tonight. I really do. I want to see what happens tonight. They were sleepwalking. the last couple of weeks since all, and I understand why. I totally get why. Like, that was a lot, you know, and then all of a sudden it happened, and then there's a lot that goes with it. And they had the 1 seed locked up. So all credit to them for being in that position where they could take a big, giant, deep breath and not care about a bunch of regular season games that ended. But it clearly they didn't care about them. And so now you're just going, okay, flip the switch again. I've been around sports too long. That's not as easy to do as it sounds. So I want to see what happens tonight. They look like they did a few weeks ago. No concerns. I'm with you. They get through this series. We'll see who they get next. They sleepwalk to some 2-1 loss or win. I'm going to start worrying a little bit.
Well, I would say 2-1 win is perfect for them because the defense score has worn teams down like that. I think that's fine. I think that the key factor here that is not, is not being talked about enough about the hockey world is, you could argue Spencer Carberry is the best coach in the Ovechkin era. He's going to have them ready to go. Like, this is where I think the difference is. Like, Barry Trotz was very good, obviously got him a Stanley Cup and like hit the right buttons in the final year that he was with the team. Every other coach, I've not had, a big vote of confidence going into the playoffs. Carberry's a little bit different, though. He's going to be able to push the buttons here and get them going. I think they'll be okay.
All right. Talk about it tomorrow. Brave Wants to Show is at 6:30 the Sports Capital.
You may get a little excited when you shop at Burlington.
What a low price! Do you see that? They have my favorite brand! It's like a whole new Burlington! I can buy two!
I'm saving so much!
Burlington saves you up to 60% off other retailers' prices every day. Will it be the low prices or the great brands? You'll love the deals. You'll love Burlington. I told you so.
Styles and selections vary by store.